So before I have two questions, but I mean two questions that has come. But before we take them up, just briefly to touch upon the subject, because I feel it's an important subject. The mother specifically spoke about it that the age of religions is over. Mother and Shubinda have made some very bold and courageous statements, and really, it's amazing. They didn't want to give us some pleasant goodies as truths, pass them off as truth. Just some cliches so that we may say, ah, so nice. Get up in the morning at 3 o'clock, touch your parents' feet. Look, sounds very nice, to parents at least. So, they didn't come to tell us such things which are cliches. They came to give us truth, not pleasant truths. There's a difference between the two. Pleasant truths keep us in our comfort zone and we are very happy because we are conditioned to it habitually or it suits us, our convenience. As one pleasant truth I was telling in the morning that husbands like to hear the duties of a wife quoted from the Dharma Shastras. So, this is what has happened when divine beings come, great incarnations, masters, beings who have embodied the higher consciousness. And they have to give their experience in the form of a body of knowledge. It's natural. But what we understand is a body of words based upon where we stand. Our ground is very different from that ground. One of the things we were, for example, hearing yesterday night on Krishna and Krishna bhajans. What Krishna and Radha's Leela is very different. It's not at all about, the kind of vital images that have been attributed to it. And Shubinda speaks about it. They have come later on. Krishna and Radha or the gopis' love is the love of the soul for the divine. And the love of the soul, Krishna dwells in the higher nature. She is the other woman. We heard about yesterday. But the seeker is wanting her to be on this plane here, in this very existence. Woman is the feminine element, the Prakriti. Unfortunately, subsequently, many people have taken it to understand it simply as a vital love, created vital images. Even there are a lot of things, whenever there is a flirt boy, they call him Krishna. It's a very, sad thing. Krishna is, of course, he flirts with creation in the highest sense, not the way we. So it's this what happens that when a great master or a great being comes and he releases certain truths, he has to embody these truths in the body of words. But if he says love, we understand human love instantly. Love all. So we understand love all means in a human way. And it can be very disorienting. I know long back somebody was referred to me, someone had come from the other side of the world to Pondicherry, and the problem was he was embracing everything, from the tree to the, dog to the stone wall and everything. So I said, why are you doing it? He said, no, everything we must love. I feel this love for everything. I said, okay, but be careful. The law may catch up on you if you continue this. Now, this state of consciousness in which it is said love all is very different from our state of consciousness where we have very inadequate means of receiving this love, of expressing this love. So, this is the big gap between that state and this. And this gap can only be bridged by yoga. So, when great truths are spoken to us, we take this context of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, Krishna, Ramayana, Bible, great truths. But there are two ways we can approach it. Either we can read it like a scripture every day, routinely, and let these words enter into the web of our own understanding, make a khichdi out there, and that's the end of the story. keep the holy book wrapped, as Sri Aurobindo says, in silken strings on the altar, read a few lines every day, then it begins to become a religion. We pick up few things that the great master did or did not do and again form a religion. We observe certain things which were temporary. In every great truth, there are temporal elements and there are eternal elements. Now, temporal elements are connected to the space and time context. There is certain moment in which things are taking place, in which a great truth is given to man. And we pick up those elements and turn it into eternal truths. Whereas in every teaching there is an eternal element, the Sanatan Satya. To receive that, we have to go beyond the scripture, beyond the written word, beyond the customs, cultures, and external things in which it is trapped. And there are several examples of it, plenty of examples. I mean, whether we take any of the Puranas or, even Ramayana and Mahabharata, one common example in Ramayana, we don't even read actually. So as a child, I remember somebody quoting Ramayana and saying, Dor Gavar Shudra Pashunari Ye Sab Thadan Ke Adhikari. Ramcharit Manas, I don't know. It basically means that Dor means dhol, the musical instrument. Gavar, somebody who is not studied much, illiterate. Dor Gavar Shudra, the menial. Pashu, the animal. And along with it, Nari, the woman. Ye sab tadan ki adhikari. They deserve, by being that, they deserve to be, scolded and even beaten up or whatever. Now, this Jad, this can't be Ramayana. Of course, it is Ravana speaking. When Hanuman is caught in Lanka and he says, yes, he is a Pashu, he needs to be. And now Ravana's word cannot be, the quoted as Ramayana. It's like in Savitri, there are people who quote passages. And when you go back and you show that this is a passage which death has spoken. So you can't, quote it as Sri Aurobindo says this. Of course, Sri Aurobindo says this. See how I'm talking of something very obvious and very gross. Not even going into the deeper subtleties of it. Very gross. Death says certain things. Many things. There are passages where it says that there is no such love upon earth, and if love would have lived, if your lover would have lived, love would have died. And we say, see. So Sri Aurobindo has also said this Mayavad. But actually through death, because that's the process. Even in Life Divine we have passages like that, which can be quoted against Sri Aurobindo. This is because scripture is like that. It has to bring out a total truth, put each thing in its own place, and that's why in Savitri itself, Savitri tells to death, O death, thou speakest the truth, but not the truth that saves. Thou speakest the truth that slays. Now hear from me the truth that saves. Now you see, both are true at different layers of consciousness. So one big problem of religions is that there are people who receive a great master's teaching, practice it, and enter into a state of yoga, enter into the state of consciousness which the words very inadequately try to convey. And they go beyond the word and they understand through an identification what really the master means. But there are others who are, the usual lazy ones. What do they do before the examination? 1 month crash course, get a kunji. People become doctors like that. You'll be surprised, kunjis. Kunjis are what? Shortcuts. You don't want to read the whole chapter, read some important questions, read some, short these things and go and vomit it out. So this is how religion is formed. A lot of religious understanding, unfortunately, has come through this. People who did not engage into yoga because they were not ready for yoga, they did not want to undertake the yoga. At the same time, they have read a scripture, what do they do with it? It turns into a belief system. Now, religion is not a belief system. It is not meant to be a belief system. It's meant to inspire man to go to another state of consciousness, which is its origin, birthplace. Yesterday we were hearing in that video about the Paravak and Pashyanti and Madhyama and Vaikhari. So through the Madhyama and Vaikhari, which is at our level, the Vak, we can ascend to the Paravak, the origin of all things. So I suppose religion can be a tool only if we take it as a yoga which has to be lived rather than read and simply intellectually understood. Look what's happening in Islam. If you take it as a practice of yoga, then it's all right. Practice it. Realize what is there in it. Or Christianity. Of course, in Hinduism, yoga has always been kept alive, but in these religions, yoga has been lost. It has become just a scripture, and that's where the problem comes. The second problem of religion is that it shuts God in a certain limited formula and calls it as the only formula of truth or as the highest formula of truth. My guru, my so and so, my master, he is the ultimate. Now, this is dangerous. Sanatan Dharma doesn't do this. It says, okay, to each one the divine comes in his own way. And I have to be faithful to the way divine has come to me. At the same time, I have to understand, accept, appreciate when others are faithful to their, understanding of the divine. It's perfectly fine. It should not be imposed. That's why originally there is no evangelism. The moment evangelism comes means by default I believe that my way is the only way. It's nothing but ego. This is my way, and that's how fidelity to one's own path need not turn into fundamentalism. Fidelity is, to me divine has come as Mother and Sri Aurobindo. I'm just giving an example. And to me, I do believe, like Tulsidas, when Tulsidas was told to bow down before image of Krishna, he is divine. He said, yes, he is divine, I don't doubt it, but I have a bit of problem. And he gave this couplet, Kaha kahun chhabi aapki bhale birajo nath, tulsi mastak tab nave dhanush baan lo haath. You are great, glorious, wonderful. Who can deny it? But if you want to take my obeisance, please, from Chakradhari become Dhanurdhari. I'll bow down, because that is the form I respond to. For me, Mother and Sri Aurobindo are God. But if I say they are the only God, everybody should worship Mother and Sri Aurobindo, there is no other, then I would be making Mother and Sri Aurobindo into a cult and a religion. The same divine may come to somebody as Christ, to somebody else as some other guru. It's perfectly fine. There is no quarrel on that. But sects are formed when I believe, sometimes it's done very subtly. Openly it is not, spoken. There was some time back a meeting of inter-religious dialogues and faiths. This is another thing which has come up. So people had come from different religions and they were talking after everything. It was meant to create a bridge. But see what happens. After the whole thing is over, the priest of one religious denomination says to other people of his own group, so I hope they got convinced. He was not there to learn or understand. He was there to convince others that look, mine is the greatest. And he was using a platform to try and convince others. This is not a good way. This is how religion is formed. Very often people ask, why Sri Aurobindo? Sri Aurobindo's mother have written everything about everything possible. But they would never try to turn it into any formula. When someone asked Sri Aurobindo, no, the person did not ask Sri Aurobindo, but asked Pavitrada. Let me be accurate, Monod Hudson. He asked Pavitrada. He was a scientist. He said, why Sri Aurobindo did not reveal much about his outer life, what he was doing, for example, what he liked to eat, and what was his views about, his everyday life, outer life, how many hours he meditated, what time he preferred to do this, and etc., etc. Pavitrata gave a very good answer. He said, it was asked to Sri Aurobindo, and Sri Aurobindo himself said that if he were to reveal it, people will begin to take that as truth and begin to imitate. And it will lose its value. Like, for instance, take a simple thing like meditation. Mother says some people meditate as if they are paying a debt to God. मेरा आज का हुंडी में 2 घंटा का मेडिटेशन चला गया, प्लीज मार कर लेना. But meditation is something natural, spontaneous. When people asked us, he said, we are not here to just give a technique. A technique in itself is meaningless. These are her words. Someone said, but it gives discipline. He said, maybe. Maybe it gives a discipline that every day one sits at a particular time and practices something. But as Kabir says, sadhu sahaj samadhi bali. We should reach at a state when to meditate upon God should be so joyous that we don't need to fix a time and place and maybe bolt straight and technique, because when you love someone, where is the technique? Is there a technique of what meditation gopis did? Their whole life was colored with Krishna. So the religions form when we pick up the outer structures, and worse still when we give it the primary importance. Truth gets lost. Like very often people, some time back, now of course children have already broken free from that. They would say, daily mandir jata hai. If somebody went to mandir daily, he's a very, very spiritual man. Ravana also did that every day. And Hanuman didn't know of a mandir because there was no mandir. Hanuman was a seeker. Whereas Ravana went for mandir, and not only that, he made a big mandir. Sometimes, even in mandir, we have mandir made by so and so, a stone, either stone, another stone. So instead of God, you are seeing all the names which are written. It looks so ugly. Most horrible thing. It's so repulsive. Ye patthar isne donate kiya. The person has died, gone, but still wants to remain immortal. This is the problem of religion, and naturally the youth don't like it. It's grotesque, it's crude, it's vulgar if you ask me. If there is anything vulgar, it is this. To go to a place of God and see your name displayed there, out there, as somebody who has donated something. You got everything from that. If you gave a small fraction of something, what is there the big deal? Everything you see received from there. In fact, it's shameful that you gave only this much. Sometimes, this thought also occurs to me. Fala ne 50,000 rupiya diya. In your life, you must have received plenty from the divine. So that means you gave only this much. The rest you kept to yourself. This is how Sri Aurobindo says. I feel like a thief that God has given me. I'm sorry, maybe, I'm speaking some inconvenient truths, but, we need to confront them. He says that Sri Aurobindo wrote this letter, to his wife. He says, I feel like a thief that I give only 2 annas to God and keep 14 annas to myself. See, this is the logic. If you say that, I have donated 50,000, that means the rest you have kept to yourself. By default, it means that. How about using every penny of ours in the right way, in a beautiful way, in a divine way? That is something, and that is far more difficult than to just give somewhere and be done with it. So this is the whole problem of religion, that it has encouraged a kind of falsehood and even become a cover for falsehood. Ugliest things have been done, continue to be done in the name of religion. Killings, imagine massacres, what not, in the name of religion. Now, this is where we need to understand that time is over. We have had enough religions. We don't need to multiply more religions. So sects also become now religion. And we use it like, हमारे गुरुजी हैं, वो कृष्णा भी हैं, ये भी हैं, शिव. Everybody is Guruji, is, everything. Yes, for you, yes, of course. It's a matter of your faith. Yeah, of course. But it doesn't mean that, we have to keep on turning that into a crystallized form. Religion is crystallization of truth, and when it is crystallized, it loses its real value. So that's why we have to go beyond all this. If we are real seekers of truth, This is not to say that somebody cannot find a truth in religion. I myself quote several times from Ramayana and Puranas, Gita. But pick up the truth, not nitpick the words and just the external aspect. We don't become religious because we wear a dhoti. We can be religious wearing jeans and kurta. It's perfectly fine. A woman is not religious if she wears a sari and uses a bindi and puts a manka tikka. She becomes truly a sati if she is one-pointed in the truth and the love that she has carried in her heart, even if she is mandodri. She is a sati. This is the great teaching. But when we lose it in its external, so the age has come when all this is going to go away. There is another thing which Mother said when she said the age of religions is over. Up till now, this world was managed by the overmind gods. We have been hearing about overmind. And overmind is the plane of the great gods, the idea forces, the phalanx of the sun. And what happens is that each of these gods is absolute in his own right because he is close with the transcendent. Shiva is absolute to the Saivites. Vishnu is absolute to the Vaishnavas. And you see, actually we will see if you read the Puranas, each god is absolute in his own right because he comes from that. God is conscious of that. And they have governed this world so far, but because it is still one aspect, there is a chance of a small little shadow entering into it. That's what I think in the morning Shraddhalu had also passingly mentioned. In the overmind, there is this possibility which enlarges and becomes a cause of division as we go much lower down, utter ignorance, etc. So these gods have done a good job, but now is the time for man to go beyond them. Even Upanishads knew about this truth. So they would say, men are the cattle of the gods. Sri Aurobindo has this wonderful prayer, be wide in me, O Varuna, be solemn and pregnant in me, O night. Or like that he goes on. Be voluptuous in me, O Bhaga. But at the end he says, and liberate me from all these gods, O Kali. Because they are one aspect. And that's what we see at a human level. Sometimes there is a clash between justice and kindness. Both are divine elements in their own right. But at a human level we fight. Love and strength, both have their divine origin. But at a human level we fight these different idea forces. So they have done their bit. Now is the time for man to go beyond the gods. When gods will become his, they have always been our friend and helper. They will become our brothers, partners in the great game of life. And all our obeisance shall go only to the Supreme. When Mother was asked that there are people who continue to worship gods, Mother said, those who want to continue to worship the gods of religions, they can continue to do so. But they must know that it has nothing to do with the supramental truth. Very categorically she has stated. She said they can continue to do so, no problem. But they must know that out of our own choice we are doing it. So if we really want to go to the total truth, the all-comprehensive wisdom, then we have to go beyond all these names and forms and formulas and ritual acts which carry a truth behind it. Keep the truth, cast away the ritual. Ritual is like the husk in which a kernel of truth is there. Take a simple example with which I'll end this part because there are two very interesting questions. Marriage. Now marriage we know is elaborate rituals. This fire, this, that, and people. Very beautiful ritual. The sacred fire in the center. What is this fire? Fire of aspiration. 7 planes on which we are together. So 7 firas. So it's a very, very beautiful ritual. But when we don't know the truth, then what happens? More important than all this is also happening. But more important is कि तेरी साड़ी मेरी साड़ी से ज़्यादा सफ़ेद कैसे? Why is Why are you looking better than me? It also becomes a matchmaking place. It also becomes a ostentatious display of wealth and things like that. I am more superior than you, and ugliest things. And soon after marriage, soon after all this center of aspiration as the center, somebody else comes to the center, and there is a power struggle. The in laws want to be at the center, the husband wants to be at the center, the wife wants to be at the center, but the central, just now you have seen, it's the fire. If you put yourself in the center, you will burn. Center is only for the fire. And if people could understand this truth, they don't have to get formally married. If you understand that in the center is the fire of aspiration, our task in our mutually conjugal life is to help each other's aspiration, not to wrestle for the ego. I am the boss or you are the boss. Anybody, if the lady tries to become the boss or the man or the in-laws, there will be chaos. Our ritual is telling us that fire has to be at the center. Keep that at the center. Anywhere there is a discussion, conflict, problem, sit together and see in the light of this fire of aspiration, this truth, this ideal that we have chosen. Where does things fit in? Is this the true thing? Is this the right thing? Collective problems can also be solved like that if we are sincere. We had a problem in one of the centers, and we used to do like this, sit together. Okay, let's see, it's mother's center. In mother's light, what is the way to solve it? And if people have goodwill and harmony, they realize, yes, if we don't know, let's read about it and sit and meditate, and we discover, yes, this is the right way. It's not about your way or my way. It's about what is the central truth. Now, because religion got lost in all these formulas, it is being broken everywhere all over the world. And what God has broken, who can revive? So, we may cry about it, we may feel sad about it, but we have to learn to accept and go forward. When Daksh Prajapati dies, out of misguided compassion, they want to revive him. And he's revived. What is the result? When the fellow moves one step forward, he moves two steps backward. When he moves backward, it looks he's moving forward because his head has been fixed in a ulta way, wrong surgery, done by the gods. So we can't blame our surgeons here, They've shown us the way. But this story is very symbolic. So Sri Aurobindo brings us a truth which is far greater. And if we want to become instruments and vehicles and that's why it's called Sanatan Dharma. Eshaha Dharma Sanatana. It's an eternal truth. You can't clothe it and fix it in any formula. It can clothe itself in number of formulas. It can have countless scriptures in the past and many more which will yet come in the future. But you can't fix it that this formula, this scripture is the only scripture for Sanatan Dharma. No. Then it's no more Sanatan Dharma. It becomes a temporary Dharma of a certain contextual time and place. Yes, all these scriptures embody something of that light. But to really know that light, we have to go beyond the scripture. That the scripture itself says. Sanatan Dharma is not a scripture. It's not just a body of intellectual knowledge. And worst itself, interpretations of those scriptures makes it even worse. It's something which is far beyond. It's a means to receive that light. Even if the entire creation is destroyed, Sanatan Dharma will be preserved. That is why it is said 6 times there were pralaya and yet the Sanatan Dharma is preserved. That is the beauty of this eternal law of life. And that Sri Aurobindo brings to the forefront. Because this was one of his work. He has received it in the Alipur jail that to re-speak the word. So he speaks about it, and Mother also very clearly, who are the people who are fit candidates for supermanhood and taking one step beyond. Many passages, just one small passage I am going to read. Thus, man's road to supermanhood will be open when he declares boldly that all he has yet developed, including the intellect of which he is so rightly and yet so vainly proud, is no longer sufficient for him. And that to uncase, discover, set free this greater power within shall be henceforward his great preoccupation. This is direct Sanatan Dharma. Then he says, therefore, the individuals who will most help the future of humanity in the new age will be those who will recognize a spiritual evolution as the destiny and therefore the great need of human being. They will be comparatively indifferent to particular belief and form of religion. Indifferent. And leave men to resort to the beliefs and forms to which they are naturally drawn. It's perfectly fine. But recognize the spiritual element. You want to read the Guru Granth Sahib, wonderful. But discover the great truth behind it. Eko Onkar, Ek Alak, is so many great truths are there. Discover that. At least ascend to the next level. Not just read it every day and forget about it. You want to follow the way of the Gita? Fine. Discover he who is behind all these forms and names, from whom everything emerges and everything vanishes into him, that great vision of the Gita. Discover it, by all means. You want to follow the way of Bible? Sure. Embody that love which can say from the cross, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. This is the great power. And it doesn't matter which way. They will only hold as essential the faith in the spiritual conversion. If we can use a book for spiritual conversion, so much the better. If not, so much the worse. So that is it. They will especially not make the mistake of thinking that this change can be effected by machinery and outward institutions. It's not possible. They will know and never forget that it has to be lived out by each man inwardly, or it can never be made a reality. This is the important element. And there are many sides to it, which maybe we can touch upon subsequently. But two important questions. The first is about consciousness. We keep hearing this word, consciousness, consciousness. What is consciousness? So there are two original mysteries of creation. And these mysteries are not birth and death. These mysteries are, what is existence? The second great mystery is, what is consciousness? The original mysteries. Why anything exists? Look at existence. Even if you destroy something, it will exist. And that's what, when we go to Sanskrit and its root sounds. Now, we may destroy a stool which is meant to sit. But the act of sitting, where you take a sthiti, station, a station of consciousness, a poise of consciousness, it will continue to exist. You may be done with stool, you pick up a chair. You don't, at psychological level it will exist, even if all this is gone. Because it exists. Existence is not only of physical objects, existence is also of thoughts, feelings, ideas. They exist. How do they exist? It's a mind-boggling question. So existence is the first original mystery. What supports their existence? So of course through yoga, intellectually also we can arrive at that, but it's a very dry and dull method. And it's always indirect. So direct ways through yoga, yogis cast their gaze deep, 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 and they discover the one sole existent from which all other existence have derived. And all that exists has its roots there. So they discovered existence. But this existence is not something mechanical. It is conscious of itself, aware of itself. So what is that power with which existence becomes aware of itself and becomes aware of all that is within it? So there are two aspects of this. Say for instance, we see a dream. Now of course we narrate I saw in this dream all this happening. So we'll see that in a dream, on one side I am doing certain things, on the other side I am also an observant who remembers, brings back the memory of the dream. So who is this I? So if we really go in this way, we discover that there is a power through which existence becomes conscious of itself. The supreme existence itself becomes conscious of itself through a power which is inherent within it. That power, or we want to call it knowledge, awareness, doesn't matter, through which existence becomes aware of itself, is consciousness. And it also becomes aware of itself and all that it contains within itself as possibilities and potentials. So consciousness has two aspects: knowledge of the self and the power for this self to manifest in countless ways. These are both exist together. There is an essential knowledge of who I am that is called jnana. And there is an extension of this jnana in multiple forms. The same jnana, the same knowledge acts in the snake and gives it the precision to catch its prey. The same knowledge acts in a mouse to give it all the means to protect itself. The same knowledge acts in the electron and atoms and protons to maintain a balance and order. The same knowledge acts in the galaxies to keep sure that they are moving in a certain way, arranged in space and time. The same knowledge acts within a human being to make him a seer and a sage. Same knowledge, not two knowledge. So this knowledge makes us aware not only of who we are, but what we can become, the becoming. So a being and a becoming. This is called consciousness. So consciousness is the fundamental reality, like existence, is the fundamental immaterial reality which weaves cosmos. This whole creation is an act of consciousness. And that's why it is said in the Mother that even the divine becomes aware of himself or itself or herself, doesn't matter, through consciousness. That's why Sri Aurobindo places the Divine Mother at the peak. This consciousness in its highest status is none else but the Divine Mother. It is through her that, through Shakti, Shiva becomes aware of himself. Otherwise he is Shava, carrying the burden of a dead past on his shoulders. He becomes Shav without the Shakti. So consciousness is that Shakti which has within it the knowledge and the power which makes existence exist and become aware. And when it goes about creating, manifesting, then how does it do it? It limits itself. And as it limits, existence limits itself, seems to limit itself. That's the beauty. Infinite seems to become finite, small, little. Everything is the same existence and the same consciousness is operating, but it limits itself. So everything becomes a limited existence and a limited consciousness. The play, they become two. Existence limits itself, wears a limiting form, becomes the Purusha, at different planes of consciousness. And consciousness limiting itself becomes Prakriti. Shakti becomes Prakriti, limited nature, though it behind it is the same Shakti. And they play a game. And when they play a game, we are crushed, but it is called delight. When they come together, it is delight. They are playing a game together. Everywhere we will see these two in a limited way. So, existence, supreme existence is Paramatma. That's the second question. And within itself, for the sake of the play, he creates multiple centers of itself, each with its own potential of the infinite. Each can manifest something of that divinity. And they become Jivatma. Within itself, it creates multiple centers of itself. So, Paramatma and Atma. Or Jivatma, more technically. If we go to Atma, there is another aspect of it. But yes, they are used very often interchangeably. For the moment, I am using it in that sense. Mera Atma to interchangeable. So consciousness also creates multiple fields to play with the Jivatma. At its highest, it is playing with only one. So there is one Ishvara and one Shakti. But then, for the sake of the multiple Jivatma, it creates multiple fields of self-manifestation. So it creates planes of consciousness. So we have the mental planes of consciousness, and we heard so many higher mental, illumined mind, intuitive mind, over mind. Below the mind, we have vital mind, we have physical mind. Then vital plane, many planes of consciousness of the vital. Many planes even of the physical matter on which, and it plunges below. Because they want to play the game to the fullest. Hide and seek. Wherever she hides, the supreme spark plunges itself and discovers. This is the story of Manu and Shatrupa. So beautifully narrated in Indian thought. Shatrupa, she assumes 100 forms. And Manu discovers wherever she is hidden. So where does she hide? She even hides into the utter darkness. She says, okay, find me. They are actually playing a game. So the spark of the divine says, here you are. And everywhere the two come together. They are not two, they are one. Sri Aurobindo says it beautifully in Savitri, the one who are two, and play in many worlds. In knowledge and ignorance, they have spoken and met. Our pleasure and pain are their eyes interchange. Nothing else. When one of them closes the eyes and says, find me or I don't see you, then there is pain. All pain at its essence is that. All suffering is at its root a longing. Longing for whom? For what? Ultimately for the one existent. It may take many forms, this person, that person. So, hide and seek is going on. That's why children love hide and seek. That's why sometimes we deliberately play hide and seek. When a couple are getting bored of each other, then they say, okay, thode din maike chale jao. It's the same game. Who started the game? He started the game. So afterward they again, please come back. No, chula nahi chal raha, main dekho khana nahi ban raha, kya mushkil mein. And she out of compassion comes. This is the same game which is going on, which symbolically takes many forms. Hide and seek. But they are one. So consciousness becomes mental consciousness. When it limits its knowledge, it becomes mental consciousness. Why? Because the jiva it's not ready for that, it has to go step by step. When it further limits another aspect of itself, limits its power, then it becomes vital consciousness. It knows it has power, but it cannot have the full power. It's seeking. Vital in man by nature, vital anywhere, seeks power, strength, joy. Similarly, the mind gropes for knowledge. So the knowledge aspect becomes mental consciousness, limiting itself. The power aspect becomes vital. And the soul existent, Satpurusha, becomes existence, material existence. Shiva, on whose breast the tremendous dance of Kali is taking place. Look at the image, how beautiful it is. He gives himself, offers himself for the play. So who will play? Now the Jiva, Purusha and Prakriti are playing. And what is happening through the play? Consciousness is developing. Developing means what? It is already there in its fullness, but it is getting released. And as it gets released, manifestation becomes more and more complex, more and more interesting, fascinating. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You have a challenge, greater challenge through the play. All life is actually a play. And in this play, this is developing. So we may say, but there is suffering and pain. That's because we add mind, because of ignorance, add something which becomes a spoil sport. It's like when you play a game of football for the joy of it. I mean, all of us used to play, I'm sure, as children. It didn't matter, who which side won. But the moment you bring in prestige, ambition, reward, and I must win, then there is success, failure, all these dualities come in. Otherwise, it's play. And when you play, consciousness develops. Whether you like it or not, it will develop. And that is the purpose of the play, which Mother says is growth of consciousness. And it can grow ultimately towards infinity, because that is what is inside. Everything holds within itself infinity, infinite existence, infinite consciousness. It has great practical implication. People think it is theory. Take, for instance, somebody who has experienced even a glimpse of infinite existence. What happens to such a person when he faces death? Like Sharmad, like Guru Tegh Bahadur, Sri Aurobindo himself with the sword dangling over his head. He knows that there are multiple existences, but one sole existence which nothing can slay or kill. You are freed from fear. Death is terrified when it comes to touch such a person, because you see, this fellow he knows the truth. So death will do pranam and say, I am sorry, I have to break this mold of yours. And such a person will say, please do your job. Temporarily I have to be out of the house, but I have another one, I'll stay there. Don't worry. All yours. Because you know the one soul existent. Death loses its meaning. It's a very practical thing. It's not a joke, it's real fact. That if we have one glimpse of the soul existent, all fear of death will vanish. Similarly, the one consciousness, which we are all the time carrying. Imagine, in times of crisis, again a very simple thing, in times of crisis, isn't it that we end up doing things which normally we will not do? There are people who will say, Mera ghutna darad hota hai, main chal nahi sakta, ye nahi ho sakta. Just let a snake come and see how they run. They will not say, I have osteoarthritis, please be kind to me, I am on medication. They will run, they will jump. Everything they will do. Even within those limits, something will come which is more than that. That is the secret. See, in Ramayana it is shown in such a beautiful way that when Ravana comes, Sita, what does she do? She picks up a blade of grass and says, Ravana, you dare cross this. A blade of grass contains within it all the potential of the consciousness. Ken Upanishad speaks of that. And that's why Ken Upanishad, the other day that we were reading, the first part is Tadev Brahman Tvam Vidhi Nedam Upasate. In the next part, it clarifies further that the gods believe they are victorious. And the eternal comes and says, even a blade of grass you cannot touch, because I stand behind it, supporting it. And all the gods can't touch it. They are victorious, but they can't touch it. Simply because one has realized the one consciousness. What does it mean in practical terms? When we take refuge in the Divine Mother, she is the one consciousness, the supreme infinite consciousness. What happens to such a person? Wherever he goes, he is not scared. He knows that all the power of all the universe and much more he holds within, and that power holds this person. So what? Even if a titan comes, he is held by her. That supreme consciousness, infinite consciousness, if we can awaken and realize, the yogis do it through the process of Kundalini. They awaken this consciousness till it reaches its ultimate possibility. In this yoga, it is done in the other way. It comes from above and opens up all the possibilities in the mind, the vital, which are fields of nature, but each supported by the same infinity. And then the person becomes potentially all-knowing and all-capable, because he is informed all the time by this infinite consciousness. So consciousness is, in fact, even we become aware of ourselves through consciousness. But since we have a limited consciousness, we become aware of ourselves in a limited way. We become aware of ourselves as a body, or we become aware of ourselves as thinking mind. But we can become aware of ourselves as Tat Tvamasi O Shvet Ketu. Soham Asmi. That's the greatest awareness. I think that also answers that question about Atma and Paramatma. So, when Atma, as long as it is playing with nature, in traditional yoga it's shown like that. It's playing with nature and it's forgotten that it is, Paramatma's ansha. And so it's lost in the fields of nature, busy playing, and nature is playing hide and seek, and he's experiencing pleasure and pain. But suddenly, when it turns and looks, oh, I am that, I belong to that, then it is no more, caught up in the play, no more suffers. And there is a very beautiful image in the Upanishad Dvasuparna, the two birds, one which is sitting on the lower branch eating the fruit, experiencing the joy and sorrow, and the other which is enjoying delight. So these are the two poises of the Atma, one turned towards nature, the other when it turns towards its own source. And when we speak of turn towards nature, then there are many fields of nature, not just the mind. Many layers of mind, many layers of vital, many layers of nether worlds. All these are fields of nature created for the experience and the joy of the Purusha, who must grow through all these planes. It's like when a baby is in the womb. What does the mother do to hold the baby? She brings out from herself a womb. Pehla palana, the first cradle. Then next, out, cradle. Third, the bed with rails. Fourth, she makes sure that the child, remains within her sight. That is another kind of cradle. And it goes on till the whole world becomes the child's cradle. But the child has grown to a point where he can navigate through the whole world, and the mother has seen to it that he reaches that point. So similarly, the one Shakti creates for the Jivatma many cradles. The first cradle is the dark womb. Utter ignorance. It doesn't know who he is. Hardly opens the eyes. Helpless baby. Fed by milk, doesn't know who is feeding. And through different layers, the cradles change. Then it comes to the mental cradle. It's a cradle. Bigger cradle, very large cradle. But already a launching pad for launching into the ultimate source. It's only when the Jivatma reaches a high degree of development in the mental domains that it can begin to turn towards its own source and turn and realize it, turn towards it. I mean, it's not barred from turning before that, but that's the normal course of evolution. So Jivatma and Paramatma is only one side of truth, of existence. But mental, physical, vital, nether worlds, higher world, they all belong to the nature side. And the two play together. So these were the questions. I think we have more or less finished the time. But if there is any quick question, maybe 2-3 minutes, we can take short. Yes.
In Sanskrit, the word sat, chit, and
Yes, that's
implies both
both.
knowledge and
Yes. Thank you for, it's for every one of us. Chit tapas, that's how Sri Aurobindo puts it.
yes. So in the all the writings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo, when they use the word consciousness, do they mean chit or do they mean
Chit tapas.
somewhere, sometimes awareness, sometimes power?
Yeah, but they are basically one. Sri Aurobindo has used it primarily as chit tapas. He has clarified that very clearly. Though, as you rightly say, that one uses the word chit, because in tradition we have sat, chit, together, ananda. But he uses the word chit always as implying both. Even knowledge is incidentally a power. It's a power of self-awareness.
Therefore, these chit and tapas are always together, or only at certain stage they are together and inseparable?
No, they have to be together, because without tapas there can be no creation and no awareness. Here tapas is simply the power of self-concentration. Anything, even a most limited existence, to know itself has to be, in every let's take a human life and our human awareness. There is a tapas involved, but not tapas in the highest sense, but in a very limited sense. That's how, to know myself, I have to attend to, this is a very interesting word, attention, this very marvelous word. Attend. It's like turning the consciousness and concentrating it, and that's how I become aware of myself and do any action. To do any action, there has to be some degree of tapas involved, tapas in its widest sense. Of course, then, tap, it can be developed to any extent and lead to self knowledge and self expansion. So, always they are together, they are used interchangeably.
At a human level, we find that there is awareness, but not necessarily will to execute.
That is, yes, they are two different things. There is a disparity. There is a lack of rhythm between the two. There is will, it's not that.
They got separated.
Yes, they get separated. Below the supermind, they get separated. Knowledge and the will, they are always together, but the capacity to execute it, the will may be completely stunned. And that's the problem of the mental domains and the vital domains, that they get separated completely. In the vital domains is the other way around. There is the will, but there is no knowledge. And mentalized people have the knowledge. Knowledge means whatever at mental level, but no will to execute it. And in supermind, they are in perfect harmony with each other.
Classical problem of the Duryodhana.
Yeah, classical problem. Yeah, janami dharmam, but I have no vritti towards it. Yes, you were saying something.
In Jainism, we discuss the embodied soul as having these two aspects, chetna and upyoga, or upyoga, I don't know if I'm saying it right. So consciousness in embodied form and its manifestation. Is this what you're discussing as well?
May or may not be. See, the problem of comparison, Sri Aurobindo, even with regard to, Taittiriya Upanishad, where he has these terms he has picked up, he was not very comfortable about, comfortable means he generally discouraged comparisons, because see, behind the words there is an experience. Now, what really was the experience, we don't know. So, it's best, as Bhai Sahib has rightly told, the word used in Indian thought is chit. Or the other day Shraddhalu was mentioning about Vigyan Mein. Now Vigyan Mein is undoubtedly, the supermind in the highest sense. But even yogis in modern times, I have read, people even who are right now conveners in World Yoga Day in India. Let me not take names. But they use Vigyan Mein to mean higher intellect. Now, it's picked up from there, and that's how we use Vigyan, science. So basically, it's best not to, because one doesn't know what was the state in which a particular word was born. It could be, if I have to use a more intuitive sense, it would mean the power of effectuation, manifestation, upyog, what you are saying. How that knowledge can extend itself, it could be. That's why I use the word could be, because intuitively that's how I feel. But may not be, because what was that state is very hard to say. Yes, please.
The other day you were sharing about miracles, like two miracles. One of the miracles was like you did not meet the mother, but still you had a love
Yeah.
for her. So similarly, like what I felt was like one of the miracles is like of all the people in the world, nearly 80% believe in God. So which is a miracle for me.
Yes.
But I've come through like from a Hindu family, then from my mother is a fortune teller.
Wow.
So she is into some blind belief which I don't like, but then I also passed through that. Then I studied in a Christian school. I'm married to a Muslim, but I learned religion a bit. Like last year I studied under a scholar. I learned Islam something.
Wow. You are a living example of how to go beyond all forms of religion. And I must say it's a real appreciation. I mean, I appreciate that, yes.
Last year during the month of Ramadan, I stayed at a mosque in Bangalore and I studied Islam there. When I passed through all the religions, like I had a lot of conflict in my mind. I mean, even now I have a conflict. Like it's a full circle. I'm from Pondicherry. So I started from Pondicherry. I left behind those philosophy. I don't want that. Then I crossed my mom. Then Christian thought. Then Islamic thought. Now I'm back. Pondicherry has come to me here. No.
You know what? You remind me. You remind me of very interesting. Actually, I missed out on one salient thing. Please sit, and I'm so happy that, you missed out on something more fundamental. And that's your name. So, you're right. See, within the framework of religions, we cannot get a perfect answer. I quite appreciate, what you're saying. Because within the framework of religions, each religion has a great truth. And to some aspect appeals, to some other aspect appeals. And therefore, people have a natural tendency toward this or that religion, which is very nice in a certain sense to break free from the frames in which one is born and to explore. But the answer will never be found within the framework of religions, but you can use religion to transcend and go to the next step. And that's where yoga comes in, that's where spirituality comes in. So if one really goes beyond it, and that's where now the next step, as you said, you have turned full circle, you have explored all these things. I mean, I have myself not in such a methodical way as you have done. Sri Ramakrishna was a living example of this. He practiced the yoga of each religion, not just the religion. The yoga of each religion, he did Hanuman Bhakti, grew almost a tail. He practiced Islam and, he would realize Allah. He practiced Christianity. He was a living example of what you are saying. But he practiced the yoga, not the religion part. And at the end of it, he discovered that all these truths converge and lead us towards that. So as long as one doesn't shut oneself into any formula, I mean, cool, you sleep in a mosque is perfectly fine. Read a book, one doesn't become, this or that. One becomes the hard religion when one begins to become evangelistic and, believe that this is the only truth. It's my truth, my way. It's perfectly fine. In fact, what you are doing is on the path of what we were just mentioning, Sanatan Dharma. The beauty of Sanatan Dharma, you can never move away from it. So, when you said that I moved from one to another, from a point of view of Sanatan Dharma, you are still, in the same, because Sanatan Dharma includes, Sri Aurobindo says, it has many scriptures. The Bible and the Quran are also its scriptures. Any path which has explored the eternal is Sanatan Dharma. So it's that from what you have moved away from is a kind of doctrinal belief system, which obviously for various reasons you didn't like, and you have absolute liberty not to like it. But if you go to its source, as indeed you go to the source of any religion, you will discover the same eternal truth shining. What has Sufism done? You see, when we read some of the Sufi kalams, I'm a great lover of Sufi music. I see the same thing, so wonderful, what bhakti. I mean, many are now coming to my mind, where he says, Holi khel rahi hai. They talk about Krishna and, he is the Pichkari and we are all gopis. And they use Ahmad in the same name. Sufism is nothing but taking out the yoga of Islam and practicing it. So they could discover the same truths. यार को हमने जा बजा देखा, कहीं जाहिर कहीं छिपा देखा. Who is यार? My beloved. जा बजा देखा. Everywhere I see him. Somewhere I see him very obviously, somewhere I see him hidden. कहीं जाहिर कहीं छुपा देखा. मुझे बेखुदी की तूने बड़ी चाशनी चटाई. I have forgotten myself. You have given me such a chasni, the experience of Ananda. So many Sufi kalams, which are nothing else, but great truths of Sanatan Dharma. And they talk about Allah, they talk about, the Islamic doctrines. But they don't practice the external hard thing. In fact, it's banned in what happened to Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. You know it. Same thing happens in Christianity. There are Christian mystics. They were Gnostics. Who were they? They were Vedantins, who were unfortunately chased away by the hardcore Christians. But that is where I feel the beauty of Sanatan Dharma is. By its very nature, it is inclusive, all-embracing. And because it includes many scriptures, many masters, and always it takes the word of the living master greater than any book. So if Sri Ramakrishna Paraman says so, then you can't say, well, Veda quotes this. No. He is a realized person. If Sri Aurobindo says so, you don't further question that, sir, but in the Vedas, that is written. Because the living embodiment of truth, that is the where Sanatan Dharma, if I may use the word, scores an edge. Because it is all inclusive, all embracing. It's easy for anybody practicing truly Sanatan Dharma to embrace anyone. There are no issues about it. But it's very difficult for the practitioner of a limited religion to embrace in heart and mind unless he is into the yoga side. So maybe you have turned full circle and it's not just chance that you are here and we are talking about going beyond religions.
But one comment is that even with Hindu religion, after here is the third day, now I understand Hindu religion in a different way, which my mom doesn't know, and she doesn't want to understand that.
Yes.
So, religion doesn't have a role to push.
All moms are like that, let me tell you. Don't push her. We were just saying she will have her own time and way. That's what the Sanatana Dharma teaches us. See, my mom, the first thing she asked when she went to Pondicherry, Sri Aurobindo Ashram. Of course, first she told me, we have so many gods and masters. Why did you have to find somebody in Pondicherry? That was her issue. So I come from a very traditional Hindu family. Far more traditional, let me tell you, with all the Ram Navami and Vratas and Upavas and Chalisas, all the Vedas, everything in my house was there. And obviously at a point of time I began to question, became an agnostic. So that's the time I also read all the religions, the books. I could go to mosque, church, anywhere, it didn't matter to me, to school. But I didn't believe in converting, I never felt the necessity. So then, my mom, after some time, she said, yeah, he's a great master, but there are many great masters. Why Pondicherry? Now, it took me time to say, what can I do? It's not my choice, but his master's choice. Anyways, so when I came there, can you imagine what is the first question she asked me? Dining room food, does it contain onion or not? Because, she can't eat onion and garlic. So, I prayed to mother and told her, no, it doesn't contain onion and garlic. And I was praying because she can make the smell of onion even if food is cooked in a vessel in which onion was, used. And I don't know, till date I have never inquired because I am afraid of having told an untruth. So I never after that asked because then I'll be in a dilemma. So I have till date never asked. Dining room khana mein onion padta hai ki nahi? But she doesn't know, she never made out. But over a period of time, they themselves began to turn. My mother toward the end of her life, she would say, you know what? You know मैं किसका माला करती हूँ. She used to do in traditional way. Shiva's mala, Durga, every possible god, was all at her fingertips literally. But toward the end, she confided to me that I am doing माँ का नाम का जप. Because through that, she went on to that. She had her own time. I never tried to convert her. I never used to say that, you must go to ashram. And it's good to keep that because that is the true spirit of Sanatana Dharma. Sri Aurobindo and the mother would never ever ask anyone to do that, even their own relatives, others. Yoga is an individual journey. It's given to you. You have reached a point where you can comprehend the vastness of this creation and the vastness of the Creator. But that's for you. When I understand your love for your mother, keep this love and compassion in your heart and pray in whatever way you seek the Almighty. And you will see that from within, the change will come at its own time. And that will be the beauty. Don't try to explain anything to anyone. This, of course, is a dedicated audience. I wouldn't do this if I am, somewhere out and wouldn't like to explain unless somebody seeks.
But isn't it like basically you start believing or not believing, whatever, is where you find solace in yourself?
Both help.
That is to me, that is the key. I never believe anybody needs to convert anybody. But whichever aspect of life that gives you solace to yourself, peace to yourself, from there you take whatever you need and go on your journey.
Fair enough. Whatever, that's what. So, we should leave essentially each one. Whether, some people seek peace and solace, some others seek something else, some others seek knowledge, wisdom.
Solace is like all around peace.
Yeah.
It's not just peace.
Yeah.
It's all around.
Absolutely. So there are different seekings and different approaches. And that's what I meant that Sanatana Dharma is about it. And so to each one is left free to seek it in their own way. And that's why conversions and evangelisms are meaningless things. It has to come from inside, this awakening, this search, and it comes to everybody in their own way. In a certain sense, everybody is on the path. In fact, everybody has his own unique religion, as Swami Vivekananda said, and Sri Aurobindo confirmed. Everybody. It's the way the dharma, eternal dharma is unfolding in me. That's my religion. That's my connect with God. And it's wonderful.
Comfort zone of that.
Yes, whichever way. And if my seeking is true, I'll be pushed out of even my comfort zone because that is infinite. Ultimate solace is in the infinite. Beyond boundaries, beyond limits. That's why, He is the limitless. Asim, Anand. But we have to go steps and stages. So who is at what we don't know, but ultimate solace comes only when we discover the infinite and the limitless.
Good thing Arvind has come home.
Okay, so I think we will just call it a day. Yeah, thank you.